I am flying off the cuff here, so I'm ready whenever.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
As long as you are. I mean, whatever.
No, I decided not to do this. All right, we're done. The end.
I also have to remind myself to not go right up on the mic.
Oh, I'm gonna get right here.
We'll be playing some deep cuts from Deep Purple.
Just that means space trucking twice.
Or Deep Purple's later, when they flirted with metal in the 80s, whatever that stuff was. I kind of like that.
I think everybody flirted with metal in the 80s.
Yeah, definitely. We should save it. But.
Yeah, let's save it. Save it for the show. Save it, sir.
Okay.
Oh man, look at my life.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! No. Don't start this.
Hello again and welcome to Relatin Dudes To Jazz. My name's Robert. I'm here with my friend Nathan. This is a podcast where we choose a song and we talk about it, and that's it. We explore our own popular culture maps and territories. I've lost it now.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
But that's what we do, and you're going to love it. I guarantee it. That is not a guarantee. This week, month, whatever period we're in, should I start over? It's too.
No, I think we're fine.
All right, it's too much.
We're still in the one a month zone. So this is the third time we've done this, and the third time in 3 months. So we're good.
I think we're going to just pretend that we do it weekly, but you know that we don't. We're going to be talking about a song that has a special place in my heart for strange reasons. And it is the Stop the Violence movement's 1988 or 87. I can't remember now. I think it's 88. Hit. It probably wasn't a hit. I should have researched chart positions and stuff like that, but guess what? I didn't. It's called
It charted fairly high. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's fine. It's called Self-Destruction. And we're going to listen to it right now. And while you're listening to it, I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia page so I'll sound real smart on the other side of this song. Here we go.
We all agree tonight, all of the speakers have agreed that America has a very serious problem. Not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction.
Well, today's topic, self-destruction. It really ain't the rap audience that's bugging. It's one or two suckers, ignorant brothers, trying to rob and steal from one another. You get caught in the mid. So to crush that stereotype, here's what we did. We got ourselves together so that you could unite and fight for what's right. Not negative cause. The way we live is positive. We don't kill our relatives.
Pop, 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 when it's shot, who's to blame? Headline, front page, and raps the name. MC Lyte here to state the bottom line. The black on black crime was way before our time.
Took a brother's life with a knife as his wife cried cause he died a trifling death when he left his very last breath. Was I slept, so watch your step. Back in the 60s, our brothers and sisters were hanged. How could you gangbang? I never ever ran from the Ku Klux Klan, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man, cause that's
self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Funky fresh dressed to impress, ready to party. Money in your pocket, dying to move your body. To get inside, you pay the whole $10. Scotch tape with a razor blade, tape to your collar. Leave the guns and the crack and the knives alone. MC Lyte's on the microphone, bum rushing and pushing, snatching and taxing. I cram to understand why brothers don't be maxing. There's only one disco, they'll close one more. You ain't guarding the door, so what you got a gun for? Do you rob
from the mouth
of why
and daddy-o.
Do a crime,
end up in jail and gotta go.
Cause you could do crime and get paid today,
and tomorrow you're behind bars in the worst way.
Far from your family,
cause you're locked away.
Now tell me,
do you really think crime pays?
Scheming on taking what your brother had?
You little sucker.
You talking all that jazz.
It's time to stand together in a unity. Cause if not, then we're soon to be self-destroyed, unemployed. The rap race will be lost without a trace or a clue, but what to do is stop the violence and kick the science down the road that we call eternity, where knowledge is formed and you learn to be self-sufficient, independent. To teach the each is what rap intended, but society wants to invade. So do not walk this path that they laid. It's
self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction.
D-Nice, break it down like this.
Children growing, women producing, men go working, some do stealing.
Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction.
I'm Miss Melody and I'm a born-again rebel. The violence in rap must cease and settle. If we want to develop and grow to another level, we can't be guinea pigs for the devil. The enemy knows they're no fools because everyone knows the hip-hop rules. So we gotta get a grip and grab what's wrong. The opposition is weak and rap is strong.
This is all about, no doubt, to stop violence. But first, let's have a moment of silence. Swing. Things been stated, re-educated, evaluated. Thoughts of the past have faded. The only thing left is the memories of our belated. And I hate it when someone dies to get all hurt up for a silly gold chain by chump.
Word up.
It doesn't make you a big man, and to one and go and dish your brother, man. And you don't know that's part of the plan. Why? Cause rap music is in full demand. Understand?
Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction.
My name is Just Ice, a man, not a prankster. I was known as the gangster, but believe me, that is no fun. The time is now to unite everyone. You don't have to be soft to be for peace. Robbing and killing and murdering is the least. You don't have to be chained by the beast, but party people, it's time I release.
Hey yo, here's the situation. Idiocy, nonsense, violence, not a good policy. Therefore, we must ignore fighting and fussing. Heaven's at the door, so there'll be no bum rushing. Let's get together because we're falling apart. I heard a brother shot another, it broke my heart. I don't understand the difficulty, people. Love your brother, treat him as an equal. They call us animals, I don't agree with them. I'll prove them wrong, but right is what you're proving them. Take heed before I leave to what I'm saying, or we'll all be on our knees praying.
Heavy deep in the heart of the matter. The self-destruction is served on a platter, making a day, not failing to anticipate. They got greedy, so they fell for the bait. That makes them a victim, picked and plucked. New jack in jails, but to the vets they're a duck. There's no one to rob, cause in jail you're a number. They never took the time to wonder about
self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction.
Yes, we urge to merge. We live for the love of our people, the hope they get along.
Yeah, so we did a song.
Getting a point to our brothers and sisters who don't know the time.
Boy, so we gonna ride.
Instead in your head, you know our job to build and collect ourselves with intellect. To revolve, to evolve to self-respect. Cause we got to keep ourselves in check, or else it's
self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction.
You just heard the Stop the Violence movement's song Self-Destruction. So, hey Nathan, what do you know about self-destruction?
I actually hadn't heard it in a long time until prepping for this show that we're unprepped for, but it was pretty impactful for me. I think I saw the video. It was probably the first time I saw the song on Yo MTV Raps, and it would have been one of those 3 summers, probably 88 or 89, living with my dad in Arizona, really into hip-hop, of course, at the time. And that song was pretty big because it featured all of these different people on it, and some that were sort of representations of the early developmental period of hip-hop, which was moving really fast at that time. When you look back now, it doesn't seem like it was changing as fast as it did back then. But they had people on that track like Dougie Fresh.
I mean, you can't forget Miss Melody.
Yeah, Miss Melody. Probably the forgotten person from that era. I married to KRS-One at the time, I believe.
And she had one solo record that is very, very difficult to find.
Yeah, and is that on Boogie Down Productions then? Like, did they do all the production for that and stuff, I assume?
I have never actually heard the record.
Me either.
I just know that it's out there and not in my house.
Yeah.
But I think it came out, I think, a year or two after Self-Destruction was recorded. But I don't remember. I'm sure that BDP had a lot to do with it, because I think she was the sister of one of the early members of BDP, but I can't remember which one. I'm piecing this together from half remembered sort of things that I've read about it, but
yeah, I don't remember either. I was not like super into Miss Melody, I guess. She just seemed like somebody that would appear on a KRS-One song every now and then. I liked a lot of other MCs, but just wasn't super into her at the time.
I think that's what appealed to me about her, was the fact that she was on this track, but she was the one that she was a mystery. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know, and I still don't know, but I didn't know then. There was even more that I didn't know then about rap music. The reason that Self-Destruction appealed to me initially is because, like you, I saw the video and I thought, well, there's all these artists on this one record. And so if I get this record, I will have a representative sample of so many. It's like a compilation album that's only a few minutes long, because you had everybody on this track. And so I would have representative samples of all of these artists. And then I could sort of spin out from there, like you used to do with the thanks list of the records you would get. You get an Anthrax record and read the thanks list, and then seek out tapes by every band that was mentioned in the thanks list. I pictured myself at least trying to do that with the artists on Self-Destruction. In some cases I did. It turned out that I wasn't as much of a rap guy permanently as maybe I was around the time that Self-Destruction was recorded. And I think I know that you kind of keep up with rap music a lot more than I do. I have friends who are really into it, and some people I know that this is all they listen to. But I think for me, I'm musically a literalist, and I need a certain type of structure in the music I listen to for the most part. And modern hip hop to me has a structure that's alien to my ears. And even though I like it and respect the artistry of a lot of it, I think where I fell off with rap was when it lost the standard cadence. And maybe I'm exposing myself as a poser by saying that. But it just got away from what I knew and what I was familiar with, and I kind of lost sight of it because I wasn't around people who were into it at all. I used to keep up with it by talking to friends at school about rap music, and once I went away to college, those friends weren't around anymore, and so I was hanging out with fans of different types of music, but I didn't have a rap friend to clue me into what was going on.
Yeah, I'm just the opposite. I feel like I've grown up with hip hop, and I've been actually doing. It's sort of like what made us start doing this podcast is I've been kind of doing a subcultural self-study in recent times, and looking at like the years that certain things came out and how old I was at the time, and what else I would have been into then. I got into rap very early. I think I can't pinpoint exactly when I first heard it, but I know that seeing like the movie Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo would have been the first time I like, obviously the breakdancing and things like that, and the graffiti imagery. So there was like at least one rap song in that movie that Ice-T did, and some other stuff. And that year I was living, my mom had just married my stepdad, and we moved to a really, really small rural community. And in that community, there was a Bad Boys home, and our music teacher at school's husband worked at this Bad Boys school, so she had like sort of a pipeline to these kids that would come from the city. And she wanted to teach us a unit on, actually it was a dance instructor, on breakdancing. So she brought in this black kid from probably somewhere in Minneapolis to St. Paul that was sent away to northern Minnesota to be, taught the proper ways or whatever as punishment, essentially. But he came in as part of this unit and taught us some breakdancing, but we all asked questions about like rap music and graffiti and everything. And so pretty much from that point forward, I got heavily into it. And so I think that when I heard this song, and it was through the video, so most of it when I think about the song is the images from the video I remember. And that was kind of a really like burgeoning scene at the time. The race factor was really getting amped up in that during this time. And I think that this song is because somebody got killed at a Boogie Down Productions concert or something like that. And it's kind of about like the incarceration of black men and things like that. There's stuff that I find really interesting about this, and is that like Malcolm X thing was big for me as a white guy growing up in the woods of northern Minnesota. Learning anything I could about like African American culture was everything to me. So the Malcolm X part of it that opens up the song. Then there's the fashion stuff like the starter caps and the gold rope chains that must just barely predate the African medallions period. MC Lyte wears a Champion jacket that probably cost $5 at JCPenney's back then, and now would be $200. I just really liked the song. I think like what you were saying about having something that had everybody on it and made it very. You had to have it. I need to have this. It has everybody on it, and the cadence thing you're mentioning too. When I was saying about it had some of these people on this song that were sort of old school, like Kool Moe Dee was in the Treacherous Three, and your Dougie Fresh. Those guys sort of represented a just barely earlier period of hip hop, and then you had like D Nice on here, Chuck D and Flava Flav at the end. So it was sort of in a weird way also a passing of the torch from old school to new school, even though when you look back at it now, it's all old school, and even probably wasn't, as I mentioned, changing as fast as it seemed like it was at the time, because when you go back and listen to hip-hop year by year now, it doesn't actually change stylistically as fast as I remember that it did. But I, like you, am totally lost when it comes to new stuff that is not basically boom bap or stuff that I used to like. Man, sorry, I just ran on that one.
Well, but you mentioned something that I think is important, and that's the political aspect of this song. I mean, I was a white kid living in a small town in South Georgia when this came out, and so I was racist, and in that way that all white people raised in America are racist. But I didn't know. I mean, I was the kind of person who, if you had said to me, "You're racist," I would have argued with you, "No, I'm not. I can't possibly be." But it's that institutionalized, internalized racism that white people are kind of steeped in this country. Mm-hmm. And so this record was a big deal for me because it was really one of the first times that I had heard and, looking at the liner notes, read about issues that were presented by prominent members of the black community that affected the black community, that it was an alien world to me. I had no idea what these issues were, what these people were talking about, and it exposed me to politically, not just artistically, exposed me to people that I otherwise wouldn't have heard about, but politically exposed me to things that I otherwise wouldn't have heard about as well. And I'm not saying I listened to one record and all of a sudden I became this expert on intraracial relations, but it really was kind of a slap in the face of there are things that you don't know about, and there are some things that you can't know about, and that's okay. It's okay for a culture to address its own illness from within and present it in a way that's appealing to the masses. I mean, like I said, some white kid in Glenville, Georgia bought this record. That's not who it was for, but if it happened to fall into my hands and influence me, that's fine. That's great. And that's what it did. And so it was really the first piece of rap music that was politically did something for me. I'd been listening to rap music before this, but I wasn't really paying attention to. I was paying attention to what they were saying, but I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying on a deeper level.
What were you listening to before you heard this, as far as rap music?
Really, whatever. I would trade tapes with kids at my school. I think was 3 Feet High and Rising out.
Yeah, 87 or 88 probably. Yeah.
3 Feet High and Rising was the first full-length rap album that I remember playing as an album straight through over and over and over. I had listened to Slick Rick's Adventures. I had listened to some Dana Dane stuff. There was a kid that went to my school at the time who was really into Slick Rick and Dana Dane, and those were two of the tapes that he had made for me that, on his home double tape deck that he would give to me. And so those were two that I kind of went through. And there was stuff like that Slick Rick record made me real uncomfortable at times, and it still does today.
Yeah.
And Dana Dane to a lesser extent, but still, gets kind of gross.
Definitely. 3 Feet High and Rising was 1989, and I just looked it up. And
okay, so this would have been before this.
But there's some confusion about, like, Stop the Violence movie, I think, started to form in 87. This track might have come out in 88, and the video not until 89. So probably being played on Yo MTV Raps at the same time as Me, Myself, and I. And I mean, they didn't stick to just what was new. So
yeah, it was all it mixes.
It's all mixes in there. Yeah.
What year was Boogie Down Productions Blueprint?
Probably 89 as well. The soundtrack for I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, or some of the songs were on that. So, and that was kind of the first BDP album that I really got into too.
Yeah, that was the one for me. That was the first album of theirs. I mean, I had heard Sound of the Police and stuff like that, the hits or whatever, but that was the first full-length record. So I guess maybe it was a couple of years. As well. So 89, I guess, was a big year for me for rap music.
Yeah, sure. Everybody of our age, anyway, that's into it. So I'm guessing that if you first heard this song via the video, that it was probably 89 as well.
Yeah, it was definitely. I would have had no understanding that this existed had I not watched Yo MTV Raps every day. And this was another, I think I've told you about, have I talked about Sounds and Beauty on here?
Or not, I think in off air. We may have talked about, is that a record store or something?
Yeah, so Sounds and Beauty was the record store in Glenville, Georgia, and it was a hair salon for black women. But it was called Sounds and Beauty because they had a couple of crates of records in the back that were mostly 12-inch singles of dance music and rap music and whatever was kind of popular at the time. And it was the club hits, and you could go in and buy a record. And I didn't know that they could get anything. And so I went in there and it was just flipping through, and the woman said, "Hey, if there's anything you want, I can order anything." And once I found that out, it was amazing that there was a record store in Glenville, Georgia that I could ride my skateboard to and get whatever I wanted, essentially. I mean, not, within major distribution. And this, I think, is the first thing. I think I bought the 12-inch single or the 7-inch single. I can't remember what format it was now, but the single for Children's Story. I think I got that there, but this was the first thing the first or second thing that I bought at Sounds and Beauty that didn't have to be special ordered for me. They just had,
they had this.
Yeah. They just had this there because it was popular enough for them to, I guess they were thinking about it from a marketing perspective. It's, it's got 12 different artists on it. Somebody will buy this, and it happened to be me.
That's cool. I never owned it. So when you ordered, was it one of those books that with the really fine print?
It was the huge book with the tiny type, and the woman who ran the place was almost always doing someone's hair. And so she would just say, "Oh, just go get the book. It's on the counter by the register." And I would flip through the book, and I would write down the code for the things that I wanted and leave it on a little slip of paper. And then in 2 weeks, I would go back up there and see what came in.
Yeah, I had a store that did that as well. I think the guy had a couple of books you could flip through. That's pretty cool. We're so far beyond that now, but I almost look back on that kind of fondly and would like to do it again. Just because you were also taking a gamble, just going on just what it said in the book. I don't remember there being any sort of descriptions as far as what I looked at. But I think another thing, the reason this was so huge for me is that I had discovered Public Enemy shortly before this through a friend that I would ride the school bus with that borrowed me Public Enemy Nation of Millions, and I dubbed that from him. And immediately fell in love with how chaotic and weird the production on that record was that the Bomb Squad did, with those really almost annoying noises that they would have going on throughout the songs. And so I kind of opened my eyes to like the whole conscious hip-hop pro-black movement, and it was just like something I wanted to know more about. And hip-hop and like Spike Lee movies were how I found out about that stuff. Basically, and then the rare rap magazine that would come through the North Woods. So most of my tapes were bought on trips to Minneapolis, or sometimes I could get them in a small mall in Hibbing, Minnesota, but that was rare.
The two artists on this, I think, that just leap out of the mix of everything is, I think, MC Lyte's verse, and I think it's probably retrospectively now because MC Lyte was sampled by Missy Elliott in that one song, and so that funky fresh dressed to impress ready to party line that got looped by Missy Elliott, so it became its own thing. But now when you listen to it, you can't keep the Missy Elliott song out of your head, so that jumps out. But the Public Enemy verse, it explodes out of this. And the production changes, the style, the delivery changes, where Flavor Flav and Chuck D are saying not every word but every other word in unison and trading off. It was the first time I'd heard this. Was, if I'm correct, I think this is, and only I would know, I think this was my introduction to Public Enemy. But what I came away from this with was that these guys are explosive, and I have to hear more of this. And so I think this was my introduction. I definitely knew about Kool Moe Dee because I really liked Wild Wild West. I definitely knew about Boogie Down Productions, but Public Enemy were new to me. And Dougie Fresh was one that that kid, his name was Terrence. This kid Terrence that I traded tapes with, that gave me the Slick Rick and Dana Dane tapes. I think he had put some Dougie Fresh stuff on a tape for me too. So I remember being familiar with him going in, but I didn't know Public Enemy. I didn't know Just Ice. I knew Stetsasonic because they'd been around. I really didn't know Heavy D before this. Either. So it was a big, it worked. It was an introduction to a lot of stuff.
Stetsasonic, you mentioned. I like that in their verse they drop a reference to their other song that was popular at the time, Talking All That Jazz. So Dougie Fresh does the part in the song where he's like, "Can we have a moment of silence?" And then he beatboxes through the moment of silence, which I love. And it wasn't uncommon that on those early rap comps, I feel like Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew was on a lot of those. So I have no doubt you probably heard that coming from friends that gave you tapes or whatever. I never liked Heavy D. The thing you mentioned about Chuck D and Flavor Flav's part being explosive is right on. So KRS-One and D Nice produced most of the song, and it says with some help from Hank Shocklee from the Bomb Squad. So I'm, obviously the Hank Shocklee part would be when when Public Enemy's part comes on. And I think that is like awesome. The way that all of a sudden that flips into like an undeniable Public Enemy beat when those guys come on.
It's interesting because, you know, everybody makes a lot of points about how influential Public Enemy were, and that is true. I'm not denying that. But what I don't understand is how that style of production, they were and still are the only ones to use that. Everybody else sort of took these things from, you know, other rap styles that worked with them, and you know, beatboxing started off with only a few people doing it well, and then everybody got better, and the type of sampling and the type of scratching. But that Bomb Squad production style stayed uniquely with Public Enemy. Nobody else really, and other people did it. I mean, the Bomb Squad worked with other people, but nobody else was doing it like Public Enemy. And as influential as they were, they retained. It's like if you listen to Nirvana now, you don't realize it sounds just like everything else that came after it, because it was so influential that it spawned a lot of imitators. But Public Enemy's style didn't. If you listen to it now, it still sounds unique and different from everything that came after it.
I can't remember exactly who produced the Paris records, but at least Paris's first record sounded like a straight Public Enemy ripoff. But growing up, I didn't necessarily, like, I knew like what beats were and loved them, but I never put together this whole production thing that is a huge part of hip hop. Like, I never was like, you know, DJ Primo made that or whatever until much later. So in recent years, I've realized that the Bomb Squad was producing way more stuff than we thought. But you're right, they kept the Public Enemy sound very specific, but they did like Belle Biv DeVoe and like some Run DMC stuff that sounds completely different from anything they were doing with Public Enemy. So I think that's kind of cool that they did it that way, but they produced way more than I ever had realized at the time.
Well, I think, and you and I were talking earlier about Full Force and how, you know, Full Force did this production that you don't realize that Full Force was doing this sort of production work that didn't sound anything like the Full Force that was backing Lisa Lisa and Cult Jam.
Right.
Yeah,
I only know, is Full Force the guys from Kid and Play House Party movies?
I don't know. I wish I knew.
I can't remember. Now, never mind. It might not be. I can't remember. For some reason, I was thinking they were the Muscle Bound guys from that movie. But yeah, they produced a ton of stuff too that you would have no idea was Full Force production, because the music that they made as the group Full Force is usually different. And I could be wrong. I could be misremembering, but is usually different than from like the stuff they did for artists.
Do you like reading? Do you like fanzines? Do you like professional wrestling? Do you like reading fanzines about professional wrestling? Well, I'm sorry. You're out of luck, because there's no such thing. But if you like reading fanzines that are supposed to be about professional wrestling, but are really about other things that are kind of adjacent to professional wrestling, then you're in luck. The Atomic Elbow Professional Wrestling Fanzine is a thing that exists. Go to theatomicelbow.bigcartel.com and treat yourself to a copy of the Atomic Elbow Professional Wrestling Fanzine. That's theatomicelbow.bigcartel.com. You won't be disappointed. And if you are, every issue comes with a money-back guarantee. What have you got to lose? Nothing. That's what. So go to theatomicelbow.bigcartel.com and get your copy of the Atomic Elbow Professional Wrestling Fanzine now. Paid for by Second Period Industries, a fake company started in 1999 by Robert Newsome, Athens, Georgia, USA.
I feel like I sounded kind of ignorant when I was talking about the politics stuff, but we'll leave it in anyway. I sounded stupid.
No, it doesn't. Well, it speaks to like who we are. Like, we don't, even in as woke as we could be, we still don't we still can't speak on that experience, right? So I think it's fine. Maybe I should have said that. All right, we're back here on Relatin Dudes to Jazz. We've been talking about Stop the Violence movement. And I wanted to ask, Robert, if you ever dressed in a hip-hop manner at all.
I did not. I grew up very tall. My height came in early. So I was on the basketball team in 8th grade just because the coach saw me and said, "Hey, you're tall." I was no good, but
that kid punched you in the chest.
Yeah, that's right. We've talked about that. I can't remember. It's only episode 3, and I'm already repeating myself. This is not. No. And so I wore big clothes, and I think that was part. Just everything was baggy then, because as an old person, I was alive in the late 80s, and I was buying oversized baggy pants and XX t-shirts, and that's just what I wore. But no, it was mostly I never had purple cross color overalls. I never had fancy expensive sneakers. We're in the South, so I never had Timberlands. It doesn't snow here. You don't need that. I was really impressed. One of the things about this self-destruction video that really struck me, and you've touched on this, is that everybody was wearing a coat. And even in, January and December, there were days where you could go outside and not need a coat. But everybody was wearing their coat in the self-destruction video, which was weird to me, because, you wear your coat in the morning, but as the day warms up, you don't wear your coat all day.
Yeah, I was very much into the fashion part of it as well. The starter caps. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money to be buying this stuff. So it was like a few key items that would make the outfit, so to speak. I had fake gold rope chains, not giant ones, but little ones. A lot of bib overalls and turtlenecks with the chain on the outside of the turtleneck. Fisherman hats and starter caps, like I mentioned, the starter jacket, like the parka.
I'm picturing, just based on what you're saying, I'm picturing Prime Minister Pete Nice.
Yeah, well, he dressed a little bit nicer. So on game days, you had to dress up. I mean, I always dressed up kind of nice because I was trying to hide where I was actually from. On game days, I would probably dress like Prime Minister Pete Nice. In fact, there was a short period of time where I walked around with a cane.
Did you have the circular glasses?
No. I never rocked like fake glasses.
I did have a pair of the Dwayne Wayne glasses from A Different World that were clear lenses that had the sunglasses that flipped down. I bought them at a gas station because I needed a pair of sunglasses. This is before I needed prescription glasses, which I do now in my old age. But on the circular rack of sunglasses at the gas station were these flip up Dwayne Wayne sunglasses, and those are the ones that I chose because I thought, now, those are really cool. They weren't, but but right. I stuck with it for quite some time.
You mentioned cross colors. I did buy some cross color stuff on a trip to Minneapolis state basketball tournament, and we went to the city center, which doesn't really exist anymore, but it was like a mall right in the heart of downtown Minneapolis. And we were in one of these stores where I bought a cross colors T-shirt that said "Fat and Funky," PH, of course, for both, and a yellow like 5-panel cross colors hat. And the music that was playing was like hip hop, but it was a very different, newer sound that I hadn't heard before. So I was, of course, like to the clerk, like, who is this? And it was Cypress Hill. They were playing Cypress Hill's debut cassette, which had just come out. So I just had that memory of buying cross colors, which in my mind does not line up with Cypress Hill at all, other than that they're both very hip hop. But I probably would not have bought cross colors had I known that my preference for fashion and rap music at least would have moved in the direction of like the Souls of Mischief style. I don't know what you'd call that, but your House of Pain and your Funk Dubious and stuff like that.
Did you own an 8-ball jacket?
No. Now, I did want to. My friend Lee, and future roommate at college, owned a "Do Not Enter" sign jacket that was in the same style of multicolored leather with, just like a road sign that said "Do Not Enter." What I mostly wanted from, I guess it would have been just a little prior to that era, was a troop jacket, because they seemed very hard to come by. They were probably really expensive. I think a lot of them were custom made for rappers. Do you know what the troop jacket is?
I don't.
There's a Skinny Boys album that's maybe like their third one. They're all wearing troop jackets on the front of that. LL Cool J wore a troop jacket.
Can I ask you a question? Or do they look like rugby uniforms and have like with vertical stripes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I did not know that's what they were called, but when you said LL Cool J wore one, I thought it was just a rugby uniform thing. I didn't know that was a thing.
They were leather.
I was.
Yeah, leather jackets with vertical stripes, and usually red and white, or like baby blue and white. Yeah, never got the troop jacket. I actually would probably wear one of those now if I came across it.
Do you remember in the early, I guess it was the early 2000s, it may still be continuing. Again, my finger's not on the pulse of fashion, but when rap artists and rap fans were wearing NASCAR jackets.
Not into it.
There was a very brief period where hip hop culture and NASCAR culture sort of barely touched each other, and I thought it was wonderful.
You like that? That was probably like do you say early 2000s? Nelly, kind of the explosion of like popular hip hop radio in the early 2000s. I would put that in line with that.
There was a woman that I worked with at the time who would wear an M&M's jacket that was for the M&M's, motorsports team. And I was into NASCAR in the mid to late 90s, and so I tried to strike up a NASCAR conversation with her, and she was having none of it. She said, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. That's not. I just like this jacket." So, and then I remember going to the mall and seeing the clothing store that had always, I guess for lack of a better term, been the urban fashion store, suddenly had racks of these NASCAR jackets. And I was like, "Oh, that's a thing now, I guess."
Home Depot car one.
The yellow Kodak film one was popular. I saw a few people wearing that.
I did not like the NASCAR infiltration. What I didn't like more than that would have been the Disney stuff.
Did that happen? I don't remember.
Yeah. So there was a period of time there that was probably more like late 90s, I think. And it was a lot of Disney, a lot of like Looney Tunes type stuff. Is that Disney? Did I just mix up two things?
No, that's Warner Brothers. I remember that.
Warner Brothers.
Where Bugs Bunny had the big baggy jeans on. And
Taz was very popular.
Tasmanian Devil had the backwards baseball hat.
Ugh, yuck.
Yeah. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran an article about that, and they used to do this thing where they would put catchy little things on the front of their newspaper boxes to get you to buy a newspaper. And the one for that day, I still have it somewhere. I think it's probably in my house. I could find it. Says Bugs Bunny becoming Thugs Bunny.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not a good look, but it was an article about this redesign of the Looney Tunes to appeal to an urban audience. And this was in the Atlanta paper, which has often been referred to as the capital of Black America, and the newspapers running that article. So that's not tone deaf in any way. Definitely thug on the front of your newspaper boxes is not loaded at all. You go ahead with that. No trouble.
We should talk about skateboarding.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I would talk about a little bit. We talk about our history. We could talk a little bit about our current lives as well.
I'm into
if you want.
Yeah, it's fine.
Looking for a gift for the special someone in your life? Well, nothing says I love you, but I really got this for myself. Quite like a copy of Soda Killers magazine. Soda Killers magazine is the only zine in the world that covers every single thing that's cool and even some things that aren't. Watch your loved one roll their eyes at you as you salivate over the world's last real zine, Soda Killers magazine. Each issue of Soda Killers magazine is 40 pages jam-packed with punk, hip-hop, graffiti, and other types of mischief. And words. Remember when zines had words in them? No, this isn't a comic or an art print book masquerading as a zine. This is a real zine for real people. Your loved one is guaranteed to flip through it once, be disgusted by the lack of risograph printing, and hand it back to its rightful owner, you. So head over to hotdogdays.bigcartel.com, that's hotdogdays with a Z.bigcartel.com, and get that special someone in your life, something they'll hate so much that they end up giving it back to you. That's Soda Killers magazine. Paid for by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Just kidding, not paid for by anybody. 2019, Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA.
That's fine.
Another thing that I was really into in around the time that Self-Destruction was coming out, and I promise to all of our dozen listeners that we will eventually talk about popular culture that was created and is consumed in this century, but it's not going to happen now, so sorry. But I was really into skateboarding, and that we've talked about the sort of cultural importance of Thrasher magazine and skateboarding culture on both of us. And it's something that, was that a part of your world at this time?
Yep, definitely doing it, not so much being into it, being influenced by the culture and the imagery. For sure, I grew up, as I've mentioned, in the middle of the woods. So to get to a skatable surface meant getting out to the highway, essentially. Actually being able to ride a skateboard somewhere properly was not really available to me. Sometimes in the summers with my dad, I would ride a skateboard at the when he lived in Idaho. We'd ride the skateboard at the nearby Wayside Rest because they had a lot of concrete. I was never good at tricks, really. I could do an ollie for a brief period of time in the 90s, but that was about it. But as far as the world around skateboarding, for sure was very influential to me. Always has been. I will periodically pick up a Thrasher magazine just to see what's happening in skateboarding. Was that your fingerboard? Were you just doing fingerboard tricks?
No, I actually I was moving. I was trying to not make a noise by moving this cup. There's a cup full of markers on my desk, and I was trying to move that over quietly because I looked at it while you were talking and thought, oh, that could fall over. And so I better move that. And when I moved it, it absolutely fell over. So that was my way of interrupting you. I apologize.
Nah, no worries. Did you skateboard?
I did. I wasn't very good at it, but even though I lived in a tiny town, I was fortunate enough to live on a road that had a church at the end of the road that really coincidentally, around the time I bought my first skateboard, repaved their parking lot. So I had, Monday through Saturday, an expanse of freshly paved asphalt that wasn't in the middle of the road that I had pretty easy access to. Part of the road leading to it was a gravel road, so I couldn't skate there. So I would hold my skateboard and ride my bicycle to the church parking lot and then skate in the church parking lot. But I did have access to that. So I was doing, and I wasn't good either. I never learned really to do tricks. I just kind of rode around.
Yeah.
I would drop off of a curb or something occasionally, but I wasn't doing kickflips or anything. So it leads me to a question that I have for you, which is,
okay,
when's the last time you skateboarded?
Earlier this evening.
So do we talk about this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about it. So yeah, go ahead.
So we both have, I guess relatively independently of each other, recently started skateboarding again, which is hilarious to me. I was talking to a friend who said that he was at a shop here in town. It's a BMX shop, but they have a little bit of skateboard stuff. And a guy came in to get a new skateboard. And this guy he claimed to be 67 years old.
Damn, that's awesome.
And decided he wanted to get back into it, that he used to skate and hadn't in a while. And so it made me feel a little better about
getting back into it at 67.
He had skated in the 80s and into the 90s during the big boom period, and had kind of messed around with it a little bit, but never really had a skateboard of his own, and decided that he wanted to start trying to do it again. And so he came in to get set up, and so it made me feel a little better about starting it. As it's definitely 100% definitely a midlife crisis. It's fine, except that I intend to live to be 150 years old, so it's not quite midlife yet, but I'll get there.
So you mentioned that we did this sort of independently of each other, which is funny. I mean, I was aware that you were kind of talking about it too as I was thinking about it. A couple things were sort of the catalyst for me. You know Dylan, Drug Dogs?
Yeah.
I think he's a listener. If not, anyway, I would like to shout him out because he talks fairly regularly on social media about how he is very glad that he's gotten back into skateboarding and how good it makes him feel. And though that's sort of the way I've always felt about going to the park and shooting baskets, or going to the gym and getting in a pickup game or whatever. But something about trying a new thing, relatively new thing, and also was like really appealing to me. And so listening to him talk about it kind of was like got the fire in me a little bit. And then I went to California about a month ago. I went to San Diego, and everybody rode a skateboard there, regardless of make or model. And I mean like age or anything like that. And so I was like, so this is still doable. This is still doable. And so when I came home, I've had a couple of skateboards for many years now, and I took a couple things from one and put them on another, and I decided to get back out there. It's really, really laughable, but it's fun. And another thing that a mutual friend of ours, or a good friend of both of ours, Ed, said recently was that they were taking a class doing something they've never done before, but they liked that they were getting better at it. And I think that is what skateboarding is to me right now. I'm no good at it. Essentially, I've never done it before, but I like the idea that I can get better at it. And it makes me feel good. It's fun.
I definitely have learned a lot about the town where I live. Going out at night, because I'm not showing up at the skate park. That's not going to happen. But I'm going out at night to various parking lots and loading docks. And there's a track where I go run sometimes. And across the street from that track, there's an elementary school. And so that elementary school parking lot is a fun place to just sort of ride around in. It's weird because it makes you look at things differently. Now I'm paying more attention, and I always had, I think it was ingrained in my head from youth, but I'm paying more attention to curbs and sidewalks. When I'm riding around in someone else's car, or, walking around, at work or something, I'll see a loading dock or an entryway into a building or something and think about it in a different way. And so it's definitely rewiring my brain a little bit too. But yeah, it's fun. I fell really hard, like hilariously bad the other night. I fell down and was kind of writhing on the sidewalk for a second, and I heard a voice say, "Hey, are you all right?" And I looked over, and what I did not realize is that there was a cop in a car in the parking lot where I had been skating, who had been watching me for 15, 20 minutes. And then when I fell, just rolled his window down to check on me. That was fine. And he's like, okay. And then rolled the window up and just watched me some more. So I didn't last too long after that, though.
I have a skate park about 4 blocks away from my house. And I stupidly went there the very first night that I got my skateboard together again. And it was by accident. There's also a park there with swings and things that my son likes. So we went there and I was like, I'm going to ride my skateboard down there if you don't mind. My wife is just like, you are an idiot. But anyway, I won't be going back there for a little while. I have a little routine out in my alley. I can kind of come out of the garage onto the parking pad, do some turns, hook around the garbage cans, and fly down the alley as fast as the chunky alley will let me fly. But I'm mostly working on the basics, like how to stop the thing or, just try not to fall.
Yeah, I've only fallen to the point of injury probably 2 or 3 times. And that's fun too. I hope that, I don't want to break nothing, but
yeah,
if I do, I will.
I did try an ollie a couple days into it and literally pulled a hammy.
That's great.
So we're gonna wait on that one. That was like the only trick I could ever do. I just need basics. I want to be able to ride off the curb without wiping out, if I can pop my front wheel over the crack in a sidewalk right now, that's progress, but it's a lot of fun. What are you riding?
I bought a brand new skateboard. I did not have one in the garage. There's a guy in town who is not listening to this. Hello, James. This guy, James, skates a lot. And I asked him one day, I said, look, I want to do this again. What do I need to know? And he said, well, you're a tall person. And so you probably want something that's a little larger. And I would recommend this. And he sort of steered me in a particular direction. And it was very frustrating because there's no skate shop in this town. There's just a BMX shop run by a guy who skates sometimes, and he'll occasionally have 1 or 2 decks in there. But he had to order parts, and then he had a big BMX demo in his parking lot that kind of took him out of it for a couple of days. And he has a newborn kid, so he's working limited hours. And so it was frustrating to wait forever to get this thing. But I finally got all the pieces in and put it together. So it's a deck that's a little more 90s style. It has a defined front and back. The nose is a little longer than the tail and tapered a little more, and it's wide. It's a wider board than the kind of popsicle stick ones that that you see more commonly now. And I think a lot of the companies now are they're still continuing to do the symmetrical ones, but they're making more 90s style decks that are a little wider in the middle,
I see that,
tapered. And so it's nice to have something big enough for my dumb giant feet to fit on and not feel like I'm trying to, stand on a water ski.
Right. I have the water ski. Mine's like, it's an old Beer City blank that I've painted on and put various things on over the years. In fact, it appeared in an art show at one point, but that's since been gone over. But it's like 8 1/4 wide, no defined nose or tail. It's not for me. I need something like you have, but it'll work for now. I got like Spitfire 60 on there and big ass trucks. So it's definitely an older big guy's popsicle stick.
I think that's it. I think we've solved racism. We definitely solved black on black crime. We definitely solved that. We talked about record stores and where you bought records when you lived in tiny towns. We talked about foolishly starting skateboarding again at an advanced age. I don't think that I learned that a troop jacket is called a troop jacket. There's a lot of takeaways from this episode. I feel good about it.
I do too. I feel good about it.
So the Stop the Violence movement, Self-Destruction, does not have a B-side. The single has an instrumental version, and I think an a cappella is on there as well, but you don't want to hear either of those things. So given the most recent topic of conversation, here is a song by The Faction. It's called Skate and Destroy, and we'll see y'all next time.
Things I read, or to find a friend
It's funny because I often ask for feedback. I almost beg for it, and then I get some, and I'm like, yeah, thanks, buddy. I don't remember asking.
Yeah, what's your problem?
Yeah, right.